When you hear the word Madagascar, what pops into your head? A talking lion? Dancing lemurs? Maybe that "I like to move it" song? Yeah, blame Hollywood. But the real Madagascar, it's one of the most biologically bizarre places on Earth. And when it comes to birds, oh, you have no idea. On this one isolated island off the coast of Africa, evolution said, let's get weird. We're talking about birds with glowing neon cheeks, birds that refuse to fly, birds that look like they came straight from the age of dinosaurs. Some are adorable, some are nightmare fuel. All of them, 100% real. So buckle up, bird nerds. Today we're exploring 15 of the wildest, rarest, and most mind-blowing birds of Madagascar. And trust me, you've never seen birds like these. Before we dive into the wildest birds this island has to offer, we need to talk about Madagascar itself. Because this place isn't just unique, it's uniquely unique. Madagascar broke off from mainland Africa about 88 million years ago. Since then, it's been floating out there, like nature's secret laboratory. With no big predators and no outside interference, plants and animals evolved in strange, isolated, and beautiful ways. Today, over 90% of the wildlife found in Madagascar exists nowhere else on Earth. That includes lemurs, chameleons, and yes, a mind-blowing number of birds. There are around 300 bird species recorded on the island, and over 100 of them are endemic, meaning if you don't come here, you'll never see them in the wild. From cloud forests to spiny deserts, Madagascar is like 10 different ecosystems crammed into one island. And the birds, they've adapted to every single one. But it's not all good news. Many of Madagascar's birds are endangered, threatened by deforestation, hunting, and climate change. So as we go through this list, remember, these aren't just quirky birds. They're also living treasures, and some are hanging by a feather. Let's start our journey into Madagascar's forests with a bird so small you could mistake it for a Halloween candy wrapper fluttering through the leaves. Meet the Madagascar Pygmy Kingfisher, a pocket-sized fireball that's only about 4.5 inches long and weighs less than a single AA battery. Now, the word kingfisher might conjure up images of a bird diving gracefully into a stream to snatch a wriggling fish. But this little guy, he said nah to that aquatic lifestyle. Unlike his river-loving cousins, the Madagascar Pygmy Kingfisher lives deep inside dense, humid forests, far from rivers or lakes. And instead of fishing, he hunts insects, spiders, and tiny invertebrates on the forest floor. Think of him as the stealthy ground ninja of the bird world, minus the throwing stars. With bright orange plumage, a glowing purple crown, and ink-black eyes, he's a bird that looks like it got dressed for Mardi Gras. But ironically, he's incredibly hard to spot. These birds are solitary, hyper-quick, and absurdly camera-shy. Most birdwatchers, even experienced ones, count themselves lucky to catch even a blur of orange in the shadows. And don't expect to find him just anywhere in Madagascar. His range is limited to a few scattered forest zones in the east and northwest, which makes him not just rare, but vulnerable. As deforestation accelerates across Madagascar, habitats like the ones this little bird depends on are shrinking. Conservationists consider him near threatened, meaning he's one step away from becoming officially endangered. So why should we care about a bug-eating orange ping-pong ball with wings? Because birds like this represent something far bigger than themselves, the wild imagination of evolution and the fragile balance of ecosystems we're only just beginning to understand. One glimpse of this fiery little blur in the forest, and suddenly, you realize, nature doesn't need to be big to be breathtaking. Now, if the Madagascar Pygmy Kingfisher was nature's candy-colored ninja, then this next bird is nature's velvet-covered nightclub singer. Meet the velvet-acidy, a tiny bird with a name that sounds like a luxury cologne and a look to match. Found only in the rainforests of eastern Madagascar, the velvet-acidy is a passerine, or perching bird, that doesn't stand out at first, until you catch the male during mating season. The males wear a sleek, jet-black coat of feathers that looks so soft you might want to pet your screen. But the real showstopper is what's on their face, a neon green wattle or patch of bare skin, glowing like it's powered by USB. And here's the wild part. That patch gets brighter and bigger when it's time to flirt. During courtship, the male velvet-acidy picks a stage, usually a branch with a good spotlight filtering through the canopy, and he clears the area of leaves like he's prepping for a performance. Then he dances. He hops, flicks his tail, tilts his head, showing off his glowy green cheeks like a feathery disco ball. The females, much duller in color, olive green with none of the flashy face bling. That's sexual dimorphism for you, where the boys dress up and the girls judge. Now, velvet-acidies are tiny, only about 5 inches long and weighing under 0.4 ounces. They live high in the understory of the forest, where light is scarce and predators are many. That black velvet plumage, it's not just stylish, it's perfect camouflage in the dim green light of the rainforest. But like many of Madagascar's forest birds, their homes are vanishing fast. Logging, agriculture, and climate change are pushing this species into smaller and more fragmented habitats. So yes, the velvet-acidy is a show-off, but it's also a reminder that in nature, beauty doesn't exist just for us to admire. Sometimes it's a signal, a survival strategy, and a dance worth protecting. Some birds are born to be background singers. But the Madagascar paradise flycatcher? This one walks onto nature's stage and steals the spotlight. This bird is straight up gorgeous, especially the males. We're talking bright white bodies, glossy black heads, and an elegant tail streamer that trails behind them like silk ribbon. That tail, on a full-grown male, it can reach over 10 inches long, more than twice the length of his entire body. When he flies, he doesn't just flap, he floats. He weaves through the understory like a piece of paper caught in a breeze. It's not the most aerodynamic way to move, but it is mesmerizing. Now, not all males are white. Some are chestnut brown with blue-gray heads. Scientists think this color variation may be tied to age, genetics, or local adaptation. But all males have one thing in common. They're working hard to impress. Their courtship is a full performance, fluffing feathers, fluttering near the female, showing off that flowing tail like it's haute couture. The females, again, way less flashy. They're usually light brown with a touch of gray-blue, built for camouflage and practicality. These flycatchers feed primarily on flying insects, catching them mid-air in quick, acrobatic swoops. Think bird ballet, but with mosquitoes. They nest in shallow, cup-like structures, usually no higher than 6 feet off the ground, tucked in dense foliage. And yes, they do co-parent. Both mom and dad share incubation and chick-rearing duties. Despite their elegance, these birds are surprisingly adaptable. You can find them in primary forests, secondary growth, and even edge habitats, as long as there are trees, bugs, and a bit of peace and quiet. But even paradise birds can't outfly deforestation. Habitat loss continues to shrink their range, especially in areas cleared for farming. So if you ever find yourself in a Madagascan forest, and a floating white ribbon passes silently through the trees, stop. You've just witnessed one of nature's finest dancers in motion. Okay, let's get weird. Meet the Cuckoo Roller, a bird so unique, it's basically a taxonomist's nightmare. At first glance, It looks like a mix between a hawk, a parrot, and maybe a pigeon who's seen some stuff. It measures up to 19 inches long, with broad wings and a hefty head. Males have metallic green backs, gray chests, and this haunting, glassy stare. The kind of look that says, "I know what you did last summer." Females, on the other hand, are spotted brown and streaky, blending perfectly with the treetops. Another case of sexual dimorphism, where the guys get all the flair and the ladies keep it low-key. But here's where it gets wild. The cuckoo roller is so genetically different from other birds, it's been placed in its own entire order. Leptosoma forms. Translation: it's not quite a cuckoo, not quite a roller, not quite anything. Scientists still aren't sure who its closest relatives are. Some think it may be a leftover branch from ancient bird evolution, a feathered fossil hiding in plain sight. Cuckoo rollers are found across forests in both eastern and western Madagascar, especially in the mid to upper canopy. They perch quietly, then launch into slow-motion flight, almost owl-like, to snatch up insects, lizards, and even small chameleons. And their call? Oh boy, it sounds like a ghost hiccuping underwater. A slow, rising whump, whump, whomp that echoes through the forest like some Jurassic soundtrack. They're not endangered, yet. But like all forest species in Madagascar, they're threatened by habitat loss. The cuckoo roller may not be flashy like the flycatcher or cute like the kingfisher, but it's arguably one of the most ancient and mysterious birds in the world. When you see one, you're not just birdwatching. You're looking at evolution holding on by a thread. When you think pigeon, your brain probably goes straight to that gray bird eating fries in a Walmart parking lot. But forget those city birds. This is Madagascar's version of a pigeon, and it looks like it just stepped out of a glam rock concert. Say hello to the Madagascar blue pigeon, about 12 inches long, stocky build, with feathers that shimmer in deep indigo, violet, and electric blue. Its neck glows with a silvery sheen, and its eyes? Bright red, like two tiny stop signs saying, "Yeah, I know I look amazing." This bird lives mostly in the tropical forests along Madagascar's east coast, especially in the mid to upper canopy, where it hops from branch to branch like it's on tour. And like a rock star, it's not into bugs or worms. It's all about fruit. Madagascar blue pigeons are frugivores, feeding on wild figs, berries, and tropical fruits. And in the process, they help disperse seeds, playing a surprisingly important role in replanting the forest. They're also social birds, often seen in small groups gliding between tall trees, their wings making a sharp whistling sound with every beat, kind of like nature's version of a dramatic guitar solo. Interestingly, this pigeon is not just a pretty face. That flashy plumage is likely used in visual signaling, either to assert dominance, attract mates, or coordinate movement in the dense forest light. The good news? Unlike many other endemic birds of Madagascar, the blue pigeon is still relatively common and stable in the wild. But that doesn't mean it's safe forever. Habitat destruction is a constant threat, and as forest cover shrinks, even the loudest birds can fade into silence. So the next time someone says pigeons are boring, show them this bird. And ask if their city pigeons wear iridescent blue tuxedos and eat jungle fruit. Time to leave the treetops and head toward the water. Because our next bird prefers swamps, rivers, and mangroves over jungle dance floors. Meet the Madagascar Heron, also known as Humblots Heron. At nearly 3.5 feet tall, with a wingspan over 5 feet, this bird cuts a long, elegant silhouette as it wades through shallow wetlands like it's walking a slow-motion runway. But don't let the graceful moves fool you. This bird is a stone-cold predator. It hunts the old-fashioned way: stillness, patience, and precision. Standing completely frozen for minutes at a time, then snap! It strikes with that dagger-like bill to grab fish, frogs, or even baby crabs. Unlike many other heron species, the Madagascar heron is endemic. It lives only on this island, mostly in the northwestern and western coastal wetlands. And sadly, it's also one of the most endangered herons in the world. Fewer than 1,500 individuals are estimated to be alive today. That's not rare. That's emergency-level rare. The biggest threat? You guessed it. Habitat destruction. Madagascar's wetlands are being drained, polluted, or cleared for agriculture, leaving this bird with fewer and fewer places to live, hunt, and breed. It's listed as endangered by the IUCN, and conservationists consider it a top priority. Efforts are being made to protect its nesting areas and limit development near key wetland sites. But without sustained action, this majestic bird may vanish. Not with a bang, but with the quiet stillness it's known for. So if you ever see a tall, gray figure standing in a marsh, unmoving, don't assume it's a statue. That could be one of the last of its kind, silently hunting, silently disappearing. All right, here's a bird you've probably never heard of. And honestly, that's part of the problem. Meet the Bernier's teal, a small, cinnamon-colored duck found only in the coastal wetlands of western Madagascar. It's about 16 inches long, with a round body, pale gray face, and chocolate brown eyes. Nothing too flashy. No long feathers, no neon cheeks, no dramatic tail streamers. And that's exactly why it's so overlooked. Bernier's teal is the definition of low profile. It prefers quiet backwaters, mangrove swamps, marshes, and estuaries, where it forages for seeds, aquatic insects, and tiny snails. During the day, it rests in shaded reed beds, nearly invisible unless you're really looking. At dusk and dawn, it becomes more active, dabbling in the shallows like a shy brown canoe. This bird wasn't even properly studied until the 1990s. Before that, it was just a scientific footnote. Misidentified, ignored, and missing from most conservation lists. But now, it's officially endangered. Habitat loss is the biggest threat. Mangroves and marshes in Madagascar are being cleared for rice paddies, charcoal production, and coastal development. Add in hunting pressure and climate-related changes in water levels, and you've got a recipe for silent extinction. Recent population estimates suggest there may be fewer than 2,000 individuals left in the wild. Luckily, organizations like the Dural Wildlife Conservation Trust are working to protect its habitat and raise awareness. And awareness really is the key, because you can't protect what you don't know exists. So while this little duck may not make headlines or show up on postcards, it matters, because every missing piece in the ecosystem leaves a gap we can't quite fill. Bernier's teal may not be loud, but it deserves to be heard. At first glance, you might mistake this bird for the Madagascar heron we met earlier. Tall, gray, long-legged, same elegant silhouette. But spend a few minutes watching, and you'll notice this one's got an edge. Meet the Humblots Heron, a bird that shares the same island, same wetlands, but definitely not the same personality. Named after 19th century French naturalist Léon Humblot, this heron is slightly smaller than its cousin, standing about 35 inches tall, with a wingspan close to 4.5 feet. It wears a darker slate-gray plumage, often blending so well into the marsh background, you'd miss it until it moves. And when it does move, it's with slow, calculated precision. Humblots Heron is a solitary hunter, fiercely territorial. It prefers shallow lakes, mangroves, and inland marshes, and it doesn't like sharing. When threatened or approached by other birds or the occasional unlucky photographer, it'll stretch out its neck, raise its crest feathers, and let out a loud, croaking bark, like a goose that just got bad news. Its diet is classic heron: fish, amphibians, crustaceans, and the occasional snake. But what sets it apart is how localized it is. While some herons range across continents, Humblots Heron exists only in Madagascar, and even then, in very specific wetland zones. That means if a swamp dries up or a mangrove is cleared, this heron doesn't just move, it disappears. Currently listed as vulnerable, its population is declining. But there's still time to act. Conservation groups are mapping breeding sites, protecting wetlands, and trying to get this shadowy giant the spotlight it's long deserved. Because in a place filled with colorful birds and flashy dancers, sometimes it's the quiet loners that tell us the most about the health of an ecosystem. You know how some birds evolve to fly better? Add stronger wings, lighter bones, better lift? Yeah, this bird did the opposite. Meet the Whitethroated Rail, Madagascar's last surviving flightless bird, and a true oddity of island evolution. It's a small, chicken-sized bird, about 11 inches long, with brown-gray feathers, a bright white throat, and a long red bill. Cute? Sure. But this little bird has a wild evolutionary story. Here's the short version. Thousands of years ago, flying rails from Madagascar colonized a remote coral atoll called Aldabra, hundreds of miles away. No predators, no pressure to fly. So over time, they lost the ability to fly. Then came the sea. Literally. A massive flood wiped out the island, and the birds went extinct. But here's where it gets crazy. Later, rails from Madagascar flew back to the now resurfaced Aldabra and evolved into flightlessness again. This is called iterative evolution, when a species re-evolves the same traits twice after going extinct in between. It's one of the only known cases in bird history. Basically, this bird respawned. Today, the white-throated rail still lives in Madagascar and on Aldabra, but the Aldabra population remains flightless, running like a roadrunner through the underbrush. On Madagascar, some still retain flight capability, but they prefer staying low to the ground, zipping between dense foliage like feathered mice. They build ground nests, forage for insects and small snails, and emit sharp, yelping calls. Think squeaky toy meets jungle alarm. Though not yet endangered, their habitats are threatened by cats, rats, and habitat fragmentation. But their story? It's pure evolution gold. Proof that sometimes, when nature hits restart, it doesn't pick something new. It picks what worked before: long legs, long beak, and a face only evolution could love. This is the Madagascar sacred ibis, a coastal bird that looks like it walked out of an ancient painting. And it kind of did. Its cousin, the African sacred ibis, was once worshipped by ancient Egyptians, mummified and offered to the gods. But this Malagasy version? Rarer, quieter, and on the edge of vanishing. About 30 inches tall, with a long down-curved bill and pure white feathers offset by a bare, black-scaled head. The Madagascar sacred ibis moves through mangrove swamps and mudflats like a ghost in slow motion. It forages in tidal waters and shallow lagoons, sweeping that curved bill side to side to catch small crabs, worms, mollusks, and aquatic insects. And while it may look stoic and statuesque, this bird is incredibly sensitive to human disturbance. It breeds in small, scattered colonies, often nesting in tall mangroves, where one chopped tree can doom an entire group. Today, it's classified as endangered, with estimates suggesting fewer than 2,000 mature individuals remain. Its range is shrinking fast due to mangrove destruction, overfishing, which depletes its food, and pollution from agriculture and settlements. But there's hope. Conservation groups are now working with local communities to restore wetlands, plant mangroves, and create protected breeding zones. And culturally, the bird still holds meaning for many Malagasy people, seen as a quiet guardian of water and balance. So while it may not get as much attention as more colorful species, the Madagascar sacred ibis reminds us that beauty can be subtle, and that sacred doesn't always mean ancient. It can also mean urgently worth saving. There's something about an eagle that just commands respect. The size, the stare, the I dare you vibe. And Madagascar has one of its own. The Madagascar fish eagle, a bird so rare it's often called the world's most endangered eagle. It's big, nearly 2.5 feet long, with a wingspan pushing 6 feet. Chestnut brown back, white belly, and a sharp, powerful beak made for ripping through fish. Its talons? Think steel traps with feathers. Found only in northwestern Madagascar, this eagle lives near freshwater lakes and large rivers, especially in areas with minimal human disturbance. It perches high in large trees, scanning the water like a sniper. Then it dives, not with speed, like a falcon, but with weight and force, grabbing fish with those deadly feet and carrying them back to its nest. Sounds badass, right? Well, here's the hard truth. There are likely fewer than 120 breeding pairs left in the wild. That's right, less than 250 mature individuals total. Why? Habitat loss is a huge factor. Deforestation means fewer nesting trees, and fishing by locals reduces the food supply. But the real kicker? They're slow breeders, 1 chick per year at most. And if the chick doesn't survive, that year's effort is gone. Conservation groups are scrambling, protecting nest sites, working with local fishermen, and even using nest cameras to monitor behavior. Why does this matter? Because apex predators like eagles are health indicators for entire ecosystems. If they're struggling, so is everything below them. The Madagascar fish eagle isn't just a rare bird. It's a warning sign in feathers. And if we lose it, we're not just losing a species. We're losing a living symbol of what happens when nature runs out of room to breathe. Now, let's head south. Not to the lush rainforests, but to the dry, spiky, alien-looking spiny forests of southwestern Madagascar. This is where you'll find a bird that few have ever seen, and even fewer have photographed. Introducing the long-tailed ground roller. About 12 inches long, with a tail that makes up nearly half its length, this bird is a feathered work of art. We're talking iridescent teal and turquoise feathers, a soft, buffy chest, bold face markings, and 2 elegantly curved tail streamers that drag like calligraphy pens across the sand. But don't let the colors fool you. This is not a showy forest bird. The long-tailed ground roller lives on the ground, in one of the driest and most ecologically unique ecosystems in the world, Madagascar's spiny forest. This forest looks like it was designed by a cactus-obsessed architect. Sharp, thorny plants dominate the landscape, and water is a luxury. Here, the roller moves stealthily through the undergrowth, catching insects, spiders, and other small invertebrates, with short, sudden bursts of speed. It doesn't fly often. It can, but it really doesn't want to. Running is faster, safer, quieter. And when breeding season arrives, the male gets just a bit dramatic. He'll fan his tail, puff out his chest, and let out soft whistles. Not the loud jungle calls you might expect, but delicate notes designed to carry through still, dry air. What makes this bird extra special? It exists nowhere else on Earth, and only in this tiny slice of southern Madagascar, a habitat that's rapidly vanishing due to charcoal production, logging, and land clearing. It's listed as vulnerable, but some scientists warn that without fast intervention, it may soon slip into endangered territory. The long-tailed ground roller isn't loud. It isn't flashy in movement. But it is rare, ancient, and entirely irreplaceable. Think of it as nature's quiet masterpiece, painted in colors we're just barely managing to preserve. All right, imagine a bird so strange, so striking, that it looks like it was designed by a kid with a box of crayons. And zero adult supervision. Meet the helmet Vanga, one of Madagascar's most iconic and bizarre birds. It's about 9 inches long, with glossy black and blue plumage. But you'll barely notice the feathers, because your eyes will go straight to that bill. Big, bold, bright blue. This bird has a beak so large, it looks comically out of proportion, like a cartoon character got stuck in real life. And it's not just for show. That massive bill is a highly specialized tool, used to pry, crush, and crack open beetles, larvae, and hard-bodied insects hiding deep in the forest understory. It's the rainforest's version of a crowbar. Found only in the humid lowland rainforests of northeastern Madagascar, helmet vangas are secretive and quiet, often moving alone or in pairs through the dense foliage like shadowy operatives. Their call is soft and descending, almost flute-like, but it echoes in a way that stops birdwatchers in their tracks. Males and females look almost identical, and both share parental duties, building cup-shaped nests tucked into low branches and raising chicks together. Sadly, like many of Madagascar's endemics, the helmet Vanga is losing ground fast. Its range is shrinking due to logging, slash-and-burn farming, and illegal land clearing. Though currently listed as vulnerable, researchers warn that its dependency on pristine forest makes it especially sensitive to even small-scale disruption. But here's the good news. This bird has become something of a poster child for rainforest conservation in Madagascar. It's charismatic, easily recognized, and utterly unforgettable. The kind of bird that can turn awareness into action. Because let's face it, when evolution gives you a neon blue hammer on your face, you deserve to be remembered. You'd think that in the 21st century, we've already discovered most of the birds on Earth, right? Well, not quite. Meet the Redtailed Newtonia, a bird that looks pretty ordinary. And that's exactly how it stayed hidden for so long. It's small, about 5.5 inches long, warm brown upper parts, pale underparts, and yes, a rusty red tail. Cute? Absolutely. Eye-catching? Not really. For decades, scientists assumed it was just a regional color morph of another Newtonia species. But when researchers started doing DNA analysis in the early 2000s, they discovered something shocking. This little bird wasn't just a color variant. It was an entirely separate species, genetically distinct enough to have branched off millions of years ago. In 2009, it was officially described and named Newtonia fanovani, the red-tailed Newtonia. Since then, it's become a textbook case of what scientists call a cryptic species. Animals that look nearly identical on the outside, but are very different on the inside. This bird lives in lowland rainforests of northeastern Madagascar, quietly foraging for insects in the understory. It's not flashy, it doesn't sing operas, but it plays a critical role in the ecosystem as a pest controller and as part of the food web. The bad news, its habitat is incredibly limited and under serious threat. Forests in this region are being cleared at an alarming rate for agriculture, mining, and logging. And because the red-tailed Newtonia was only recently recognized as a distinct species, it hasn't been prioritized in many conservation plans. It's like discovering a family member you never knew existed, only to realize they're already in danger. This bird isn't rare because it's vanishing. It's rare because we only just realized it was here all along. And that, in a way, makes it even more worth saving. Some birds are rare, some are endangered, and some become legends. Enter the Madagascar serpent eagle, a bird that vanished for over 60 years, was declared extinct, and then, in the most cinematic plot twist nature has to offer, it came back. This eagle was first described in 1875. Then it disappeared. No confirmed sightings, no photographs, no trace. For decades, it existed only in dusty museum drawers and old ornithology books, a ghost of the rainforest. Then in 1993, against all odds, it was rediscovered in the dense, remote rainforests of northeastern Madagascar. Not extinct, just hiding. And it makes sense. The Madagascar serpent eagle is a master of stealth. It's medium-sized, about 23 inches long, with slate-gray plumage, a barred tail, and piercing yellow eyes. It glides silently under the canopy, perching low, scanning the underbrush. As its name suggests, it specializes in snakes and reptiles, snatching chameleons, tree snakes, and even small lemurs with surgical precision. This bird doesn't announce itself. It doesn't soar above the trees or scream like a hawk. It whispers through the forest like a secret you're not supposed to hear. And that silence, it nearly cost us the species. Even now, it remains critically endangered, with habitat loss, illegal logging, and fragmentation putting immense pressure on the tiny populations that remain. But its story gives us hope, because it proves something we often forget. Extinction isn't always final. If we protect what's left, if we listen closely, some ghosts of the forest might just whisper back. The Madagascar serpent eagle is one of those whispers, a fierce, beautiful reminder that even in silence, nature still has a voice. We just have to care enough to hear it. So what do you think? Birds that can't fly, birds that evolved twice, birds with glow-in-the-dark cheeks, blue helmets, and voices like haunted whistles. Madagascar isn't just a biodiversity hotspot. It's a living library of evolution, and the birds here are some of its wildest chapters. But here's the thing about libraries. If no one visits, if no one cares, the books start to disappear. Many of the birds we met today are hanging on by a feather. Some may not be here a decade from now, but we've seen what's possible. Species thought extinct, found again. Forgotten birds, rediscovered. Quiet creatures given a voice. Conservation isn't just about saving animals. It's about saving stories. And these birds, they've got some of the best ones I've ever heard. So if any of these winged wonders made you smile, or made you say, "Wait, that's real?" consider hitting that like button. Subscribe if you want to keep exploring the world's weirdest, rarest, and most amazing birds, one country at a time. And hey, drop a comment below. Which bird blew your mind the most? Which one deserves its own full video? Coming up next, birds of China, where ancient culture meets avian spectacle. Trust me, you won't want to miss it. Until then, keep your eyes to the skies, because you never know what might still be out there, waiting to be seen.